Good evening, everyone. My name is Kate Byer, and I'm a Senior Associate Director for the Office of Admissions at HWS. I'm thrilled to welcome you all to tonight's session, and I'm especially excited to introduce Lisa Hosky, who's our Director of Financial Aid, who will be sharing some insights into the wonderful world of financial aid this evening. Um, we'll be getting started in just a moment. Before we begin, I wanted to let you know that we're going to have time at the end for questions. We know this is a complicated topic. You're also welcome to drop your questions in the chat at any time, and we're going to do our best to address all of them. There'll also be an option where you can like a question. So if you have the same question and you want to kind of bump it, then please feel free to do that. And like all of our virtual sessions, this is being recorded. We upload them to our YouTube channel. So if you've missed any of the others, or someone can't make it on this one tonight, we will be recording it and you can find them all there. So I have muted you all and I just ask that you stay muted while Lisa's doing her presentation. And then at the end, if you're brave and you want to jump off and ask a question, great. And otherwise, feel free to utilize the chat. Um, so once again, just thank you for joining us. Just wanted to start by going over a few couple of dates and deadlines. Lisa thought that that would be helpful for the application process before we get into financial aid. So early decision and early application. Action applications were due November 15th. So early decisions will be released mid-December. Early action decisions are released in mid-January. Early Decision 2 applications are due January 15th, and decisions are released mid-February. And then regular decision applications are due February 1st, and decisions are released mid-March. And just a quick note about how it works on our end. Every applicant is considered for merit aid. Every admitted student receives a merit award. There's no additional application that a student needs to do for this. And basically, the stronger you are, the more money you'll receive. Our top merit scholarship is $43,000 this year. So just a couple of introductions about the rounds, when you should be expecting things, and how the merit component works from the admissions side of things. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lisa to talk a little bit more about the aid process.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm really excited that you're here. I'm hoping that I can help at least ease your mind about some of the financial aid concerns. It's one of those topics that's very challenging for everybody, especially the first time around. Kate just talked about how, hang on, let me see, how once your application is reviewed, the student will be considered for merit scholarship at that time. And the student will receive that letter, I believe, in the admissions portal, the acceptance and the award that might be a merit scholarship based on academics. That's not the end of the story. So once I know that your son or daughter is admitted, if you filed the FAFSA, and I'm hoping all of you have filed the FAFSA. If you haven't, please do so. It's studentaid.gov. And if you need help with that process, you can reach out to anybody in admissions or financial aid, and we can talk you through where to go. Your admissions decision will come to my system from admissions. The Department of Education will send the FAFSA to me. We'll match them together. We get them electronically, and then we start the process of reviewing the student for financial aid. As soon as somebody's admitted and we have the financial aid form, the FAFSA, we're going to create that financial aid package as quickly as we can. We have to take a little time to review it. We want to make sure we consider everything in your circumstance that's outlined. We want to it looks at income and assets for the parent and the student, all that kind of stuff. We'll take the merit scholarship and then some need-based ones, hopefully from HWS if you qualify. We'll look at your eligibility for Pell, which is a federal grant. We'll look at your eligibility for the New York State grant if you're a New York State student. Almost all of the letters, as long as you are a U.S. citizen and meet the other requirements, will be offered loans. And I think most of our students also are generally offered work study. Once we go through that process and we've reviewed everything, we will create a financial aid award letter that will actually be available in the same portal where you saw the admissions decision. As soon as they're available, they're sent over there. If you have any questions, At any time, you can call our office, you can email us, and there's me and there's my staff. There's in-person meetings. If you happen to be on campus, there's always somebody there, and we all take meetings virtually. If that's something that would be helpful if you want to talk about what's going on. One of the things that I think is useful for people to understand before they get the letter is what it takes to put that financial aid award letter together and what we look at, because that's always sort of the big mystery. The federal government requires that we create a budget. This is for all students, called the cost of attendance. And what that is it's really going to include how much the tuition and fees cost here. It's going to be food and housing, how much your student may pay for books. Those are all, I mean, the books aren't billable, they're more purchasing, but tuition and fees, food and housing are billable. Books can be if you do them through our bookstore. Transportation, personal expenses, those are costs that we know you're going to incur. So if you're coming in from Chicago, you're probably going to buy a plane ticket. If you're driving in from the city, there's going to be some gas cost, or if you take the train. So we do some estimate for that. Personal expenses are things like your student might need a haircut and want a pizza sometime one month, so we kind of do an allowance for that. And the loan fees are the fees that are charged by the federal government for lending you money. They're not that much, it's about $70. So that's the first step. We build that cost of attendance. It's pretty much the same for everybody. And then we look at all of the different funds that you may be eligible to receive. So the scholarships that are merit-based, you do not need to repay them. You need to remain enrolled full-time and do well enough academically to stay in school. Grants are usually need-based. You do not repay those. They can be from the college or university, they can be from the federal government, and they can be from the state, depending on where you live. So those are the first things that I'm going to look at and say, what can I help this student be eligible to receive? Then we look at loans. Loans, we will offer the student federal loans in the first package. It's up to you whether you take them or not. And once we get to other repayment options, we don't put these in the package until after we talk. You could look at private or parent loans if you wanted to use those, and then work opportunities. In addition to the federal work study, which is funds that we have from the federal government to help give our students on-campus jobs, HWS actually also commits part of their budget to employ more students on campus to get some of that experience and make a little bit of funding. So this is how it actually looks with an example. If you see our HWS cost of attendance, tuition and fees, $68,414, food and housing, $18,668, books and supplies, personal expenses, transportation, loan fees. And the loan fees come out of the loan proceeds. You don't pay those directly. So that looks over 91,000 is pretty high. I mean, it looks high, right? But with our generous aid package, it does make a difference. Here's an example of an aid package. So when the student received a scholarship going through the admissions process of $34,000, they have significant needs, so they received $24,626 from us. They qualified for a federal Pell Grant. They qualified for New York State TAP. Federal loans, the general amount for incoming students the first year is $5,500. That could be a difference between subsidized or unsubsidized, meaning some will accrue interest while your student is in school, some will not. We can always get into more detail about that if there's questions. That is the current interest rate, 6.39. And then in this one, there's a work award of $2,000. So that maybe 4 or 5 hours a week of work, which is really good to help some of those personal expenses that they might experience. So for this particular student, the reward package is $74,126. So far, so good. Okay. So then you take the cost of attendance budget, subtract the aid. This would be the out-of-pocket expenses for this student. Now this amount, $17,176, includes those things that are not billed, like transportation. So if you live in Syracuse, you're probably not going to spend nearly as much to get to campus as you are instead for somebody who lives in California. So that's variable depending on your circumstance. This is probably an overestimate of what you may need. So to make it a little bit more clear, this is how it actually looks for what you're billed. You're billed for the tuition fees, food and housing, in this case, $87,082. Financial aid, 72,126. I didn't include the work study here because the work study is something that the student would earn by working. It's just a job. It's not something that would go on the bill. So the out-of-pocket expenses in this case would actually be $14,956 for the year. It's not billed all up front. The bill goes out in July with a due date in August, and then the bill goes out in December with a due date in January. So what are 7,000 plus, 7,000 and more would be each semester, which looks a little less scary than the 91,000 you saw at the beginning, right? So I mentioned this already. They're sent out in July and December. So once we get to this point, you've come to this meeting, you've got your FAFSA done, you've got your aid package, and your student has decided to attend HWS, which we obviously hope all of you do. Your full payment, there are options for paying any balance that is due. They can include full payment by the due date, or if you have a 529, our student accounts office would work with you to be able to do that. That's a savings account a lot of people have for their students. We offer a payment plan by semester at HWS, so you can basically spread how much you owe out over several months. So usually if you sign up early, you can have 5 months to pay it in the fall. If you sign up later, it'll be 4 months, it'll go to 3 months, that kind of thing. So in this case, I'm going to round up, say it's $8,000 that this family would owe for the fall semester. You could sign up for a payment plan. It would be $2,000 a semester for a $30 fee. It's not a loan. It just makes it a little bit easier for you to spread that obligation out. There are parent loan options, the Federal Parent Plus loan, what we can talk about to help meet that difference. That's at 8.94% right now. There are private loans, and the private loans are generally in the student's name, but often require a cosigner. So if they require a cosigner, 9 times out of 10, that ends up being a parent. So really it starts becoming a family discussion about which one would work best for you. And we will help you through all of those processes, and we will help you figure out, you can do a combination of anything. If you want to do a payment plan for $4,000, but you want to take out a loan for $4,000, we can help you do that. Any combination will help you through. So the final thoughts, and we are purposely kind of going through this a little bit more quickly because I want to make sure we have lots of time for questions. We will get your aid package to you as quickly as possible. We absolutely understand the urgency, students trying to make these decisions. We can discuss the payment options in more detail with each of you, or if there are any special circumstances that aren't accounted for in the FAFSA, because sometimes there are things that come up that we just don't, we won't be able to see. But we won't be able to do that until after you receive your initial financial aid package. So get the application in, get your acceptance, get your aid package. And if there looks like this is close, or I might need a little bit more here, you don't know that I'm paying for an elderly parent. Like that's something, for example, that wouldn't show up on the FAFSA. If anybody is helping fund care for an elderly parent, that's something we should probably talk about to see if there's any adjustments that can be made. But all of those conversations should happen after you get your initial financial aid package. And again, we have virtual meetings. You can meet in person, you can call us, you can email. We are absolutely here to help. I'm very passionate about my work in financial aid. It's what helped me get through college, and appointments are available. So on that note, let's see how many questions we have.
Great. Everyone's had a lot of restraint. I'm impressed. Okay. Can you just talk about the transportation part that you do, Lisa? That's just an
Mhm.
estimate, right? Because someone said that
Absolutely.
they lived further away. So,
Yep, absolutely. It's just an estimate. So if you're in that really, like I said, we don't bill that. We just kind of put that in there so we can increase your eligibility for funds. So if
okay.
you only spend $300 a year, that's great. If you need more because you're flying in from California, you should talk with me and we can see if we need to make an adjustment to your particular situation.
Yeah, someone else just asked the same thing. Are cost of living expenses considered for families living in expensive regions or cities? Do you adjust it all based on like that?
The FAFSA actually has that built in, and it's something we will absolutely, we'll see where you live as well. So I understand that, like, say, living in Manhattan is going to be significantly more expensive than living in Utica, New York, for example.
Oh, and I think these are both the same, but we do not require the CSS profile. We are a FAFSA
Right.
only school unless you're an international student. So,
Exactly.
so everyone that is domestic, you do not need to send us a CSS profile.
Hmm.
Okay, great. Oh yeah, can you just talk a little bit about international students and how aid works for them?
Sure. So international students will go through the same process and in terms of being evaluated for a merit scholarship on the admissions side. And then I believe, and Kate, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they can either do the CSS profile or the Declaration of Finance online, right, through the admissions portal or the
Yeah,
admission
we have a
website.
HWS specific one now that they
Yep.
can find on our website.
Yeah. Yeah, if the CSS profile is cost prohibitive. And then I would use that in place of the FAFSA to evaluate your eligibility for need-based funding. Although we would only be able to evaluate international students for need-based funding from the institutional source, not from anything federal or state.
Right. Good. I know there are no sports scholarships for sports. Does that factor in at all? So we
No,
can't,
there's,
right?
I
Because
mean,
we're
right,
Division three.
right, other than lacrosse, which
Right.
we're Division 1 for.
Right. But no, so we don't give any sort of funding for
Mhm.
athletics. Do you consider other siblings attending college?
We do. It's part of the holistic review that we do when we look at your aid package. So you heard me talk about it a bit earlier, how we get the FAFSA and we get your admissions decision and what merit scholarship you get. Part of what we look at is we look at all of the data that's on the FAFSA, and, including things like how many you have in school. The FAFSA used to count that in its calculation. It does not anymore. But from my perspective, when I look at how many are in school, it's going to be a very different consideration for somebody who, say, has two in school but makes 50,000 a year, as opposed to somebody who has two in school that makes 750,000 a year. So the level of consideration would be driven by some of that
Good.
ability.
I don't know if you can answer this, but someone asked what is the maximum amount of financial aid that can be offered to international students?
Yeah, it's not really a one size fits all, but I can say it will generally not go over tuition and fees. So you should prepare for room and for housing and food regardless.
Yeah.
That's a very, very broad cut.
Yeah. This is like a good scenario. And I think you spoke to this, but if you want to just
Hmm.
say it again. So my financial pictures changed. Father lost job, only one income. I don't want to
Hmm.
apply with the FAFSA since it's not an accurate picture, the financial picture from those records. We still need it though, right? Like,
Absolutely.
and
Yep.
then you were saying after you receive your aid package, then come back with us
Yep.
and tell us that
Yep.
information, and then we can see what we can do.
Right. So what happens is we still absolutely need the FAFSA. Um, and it will be based on 2 years prior. We'll create an aid package based on that. And then if there is a situation where there was a job loss, I would recommend making an appointment with me or one of my staff. If you email me directly, there's a Calendly link where you can schedule it virtually. And we can talk about whether or not going through that next review process would make sense. So depending on where you are, the FAFSA creates uh, the output of the FAFSA is called the Student Aid Index, which is basically a need index. So if your need index comes in and it's 0 and you don't have the ability to pay according to the FAFSA, doing that extra step for separating out the income won't make any sense because it won't give you more money. But if that SAI is like, I don't know, $100,000 and you've the biggest wage earner lost a job, then that's something we should think about whether or not we can make any adjustments for. So I think an initial conversation before we do any changes to the FAFSA would be the best way to go.
Right. Oh, and this is just to reiterate, so because I know some people jumped in a little late. So how it works, they're saying, do you send the financial application with the acceptance letter? So no. So how it works is you
Hmm.
get your merit component when you get your decision,
Hmm.
and then hopefully within a couple of weeks later, right, we're trying to process them as quickly as we can. Then you get
Yep.
an updated package. So it's really important for everyone on the call that you circle back to your portal and check in when we send you an update because that will have a new package.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a really good point, Kate, because I think sometimes people think once they get that admission letter, that's done. And it's not the end of the story there. We do more. You'll get an email, I think. that says there's a new decision letter. It doesn't say financial aid letter, right? Or it might, but
Yeah.
log in regularly so you can check.
Yeah. I'm just doing a couple of quick ones.
Yeah,
Yeah, so even if you, and I know you'll agree with me, but even if you don't think you're going to qualify for need-based aid, we say you should apply, right?
absolutely. Because
Yeah.
the worst that happens is you're offered a federal loan that you decide not to take. The best
Right.
that happens is maybe you qualify for some need-based funding from us that you didn't know you would get.
There are a couple of questions wanting to know a little bit more about HWS grants and like how we
Mhm.
calculate those grants. So not necessarily TAP or Pell, but can you talk just a little bit about the HWS grants?
HWS grants are the need. There's not a specific calculation that I can provide for you, but what we would do is we would look at, you take the cost of attendance. I probably should have talked about this at the beginning. We would take the cost of attendance, subtract the student aid index or the SAI that comes from the FAFSA. So for a quick example, let's say your cost of attendance is $90,000. The federal government says you can pay $20,000 with this SAI. You have a need of $70,000. From that need of $70,000, I have rules about what I can apply where. So first we have to apply the merit scholarship to that. Then I'm going to look at the Pell, I'm going to look at the TAP, and then I'm going to look at how much HWS grant I can give you and how much budget I have to work with. So I try to maximize the funding that our students get, balancing all of those things. But if somebody comes in and they have a different SAI, that amount might be different.
Right. Would FAFSA results be the same for all schools that people apply to? So the
The
federal aid is similar?
the SAI should be the same for all schools you apply to. The cost of attendance might be different. So
Yeah.
and that's really important to look at when you're comparing aid packages because a $43,000 scholarship here off of our tuition and fees is very different than say a $45,000 scholarship with somebody else who might have higher tuition and fees. So you want to make sure you're comparing apples and oranges, apples to apples and oranges to oranges, so
Yeah.
to speak.
What about volatile income? For example, if your FAFSA year income is higher than normal.
Well, it'll probably even out the next year. So it's always 2 years behind.
Yeah.
So unless it's something that's like a significant, that it's something we should talk about.
Let me switch that to that is hilarious. Here I'm like, oh, it's working on my headphones.
Okay. Someone said they've only seen the MELI scholarship. Are there other ones you can apply to but are as high? So the merit I discussed in the very beginning that you're automatically considered for go up to 43. So the MELI is 46. So we get you pretty close, and that's one that you don't have to apply for. That will just automatically consider you based on academics. Oh, this is a good one, Lisa. Everyone always wants to know what if they've paid for private high school, right? Do you consider that? Oh, you're muted, Lisa. Oh, I muted you, I think, on accident. Sorry, I hit mute all because someone was talking.
That's okay. It's not something that's automatically considered, but it's certainly something I'm happy to review.
Can you talk about our yellow ribbon status?
Yes, we are a yellow ribbon school. So a combination of whatever merit you may receive on top of the VA benefits, on top of yellow ribbon, will generally total full tuition and fees, but will not exceed tuition and fees.
Great.
Is
There
that,
are a
is that
couple. Oh,
okay?
yeah. There are a couple of questions about some of those specialty scholarships. So the art one, and the ones that apply require an extra application. So let me just tell you. So yes, your student needs to apply for those separately. So we have one around MELI. We have leadership, service, and then ones in fine and performing arts. For the early decision and early action rounds, those are due December 1st. So we've given you a little bit more time for ED2 and regular. They're going to be due at the deadline that you apply for. So, and they do require separate components. So some have essays, obviously the art ones, some of them have portfolio pieces or submissions. So things that you should, all of the requirements are on our website though. If you go under merit scholarships, if you scroll to the bottom, you'll find all of those. So it will tell you what you need to give us and when. Um, and oh, can you want to talk just quickly about how, say you got an art scholarship, how that adds onto your package?
So you would get the merit, it does stack onto the merit. And then, so it would basically come over as a second merit for purposes of financial aid processing. And then I would look at your eligibility for the other funds for the need-based funds as well.
Yeah, and there was one more about the art. So we do, I'll just quickly go through. So we have them in creative writing, art and architecture, music, performance and vocal, theater, dance. So someone asked
And
about
and
arts.
the other exception, just to be clear, and you might have said this, Kate, if you did, I'm sorry. The MELI is not stackable. You get the MELI or a
Correct.
merit.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Someone says that CSS has us listed on their website, so they share the CSS. But
And
we definitely
that's
need the
fine.
FAFSA, correct?
We absolutely need the FAFSA regardless, but I'm happy to look at the CSS if you think that it's, we'll get it. And I'll be happy that I can look at it to see if it provides a more robust picture of your financial situation.
Can you expand on what that person you used in your example essay number was and what other factors are considered for scholarship? So I think they're going back to like one of
Yeah.
those first slides when you gave. So they wanted
And
to know a little bit more. Yeah.
I honestly don't remember what the SAI was. I sort of picked somebody randomly, but it was
Yeah.
somebody that would have had an SAI of under $7,395 to qualify for Pell, if that's helpful. That's a cutoff.
Okay. And you recommend doing FAFSA regardless if your son has gotten in or not. Well, no one's gotten in yet, so
No.
yeah, so
Yeah.
definitely, yep,
It and admissions decisions are not made based on any information on the FAFSA.
right. We don't
And
see
then
anything. We read
no,
with no information about your
yep.
finances.
That
Um,
only lives in financial aid.
but that is something that we need on that checklist, right? If your student has gone into the portal, if you've said yes to need-based aid, you're going to see that FAFSA item, and we do need
Mm-hmm.
you to complete that if you want to be considered for need-based
Yep.
aid. We have another child in college. Do we have to create a totally different profile account in FAFSA, one than the one that your son will, yeah, that will attend? So if
Yep.
you have, yeah,
Every student has to, so basically when you file the FAFSA, the student should initiate it and every student has their own FAFSA. They invite the parent to be a contributor. And then the parent would just respond to that email by allowing the IRS to populate that data.
okay,
You can use your same login for both students, but each student has to have their own login.
okay. There are a couple of questions about Common App Scholarship. I don't know what that is. Are you familiar with that?
Mm-mm. Nope.
So it says, are they acceptable? I'm not sure what those are. Is HWS grant based on FAFSA?
Yes.
Okay. Do you get the information about the number of siblings in college off the FAFSA since they ask you, or do we need to provide it for you?
We would see it on the FAFSA. Even though they're not counting it in the FAFSA calculation, they're still requiring it on the form, the federal government.
Oh, this is a good one we haven't talked about. Is aid guaranteed for 4 years?
As long as you stay in good academic standing and remain enrolled full time, your merit scholarship will go with you absolutely 4 years. I do everything I can to keep the need the same all 4 years. Having said that, um, when you will see need-based aid possibly change could be for the good. Like, not, if your income decreases significantly, I will reconsider you for more need-based funding. If you win the lotto, then I might end up taking some funding away. But it's not like I'm not going to be taking need-based funding away if you got a $5,000 increase at work kind of thing. So as long as your situation remains relatively stable and the same, it's going to be consistent. I can't control what the federal government or the state does, however, so you could see changes there.
Yeah. Do you want to just talk quickly about outside scholarships?
hmm Outside scholarships, when students receive outside scholarships, our policy is to apply them in the way that's in the best interest of the student. Again, I'm going back to our cost of attendance budget. No matter what, I can't exceed that budget. And then I have the limitations based on need. Having said that, if there's any unmet need, meaning we didn't meet all of your need by that calculation, the scholarship won't take any money away. If I have to decrease any funding because it's going to exceed that top line budget, the first thing I look at are work study and loans. And then if the scholarship is so big that it wipes out all the work study and all of the loans, and you're looking at 7,500 or better, then I might have to look at some HWS need-based grant, but I'm going to do everything I can to avoid that.
Okay. Um, there's a question about the portal, so I'm going to say it to everyone for all my admissions
Mhm.
colleagues too. How do we set up our portal? So when you apply to HWS, pretty quickly after, we send you an email that has your portal login and credentials. And we
Mhm.
have a group of people who have not logged in yet. So some people on the call may not have done
Mhm.
that yet. So go back and look for it. I think it says like Hobart and William Smith application portal information. If for some reason you can't find it, email us and we can resend it to you. We want to make sure that you're getting logged into your portal because that's where everything's going to be, right? That's where you see
Mhm.
your checklist, that's where you see your decision, that's where you're going to see your aid
Mhm.
package. So just saying it for everyone in the room. Um, oh, so someone asked about, describe who qualifies for merit aid in the GPA. So everyone's going to be considered for merit. Everyone's going to get merit. And we have an internal document we use that helps with that. But basically, the stronger your GPA is, the more merit you get. And but everyone gets something. So it's not like there's a cutoff. Um, If your student has a strong academic year as a senior and their GPA gets higher by mid-year, can merit be adjusted? So we don't do that, right? No.
Not generally.
So yeah, someone just asked, yes, the aid package holds for all years as long as you're in good standing and nothing changes, right, significantly.
Right. And I mean, it really has to be significant. Like I said, good or bad, really significant. Now, honestly, if you do win the lottery, I am truly probably going to take it away and put you in contact with, institutional advancement, perhaps, but very rare.
Okay. How does EOP play into the expenses covered? Is it an addition or an other option?
It's part of, it would be one of those state grants that I would think about.
Okay. Oh, this is a good one that we haven't addressed, but can merit awards increase after the first year?
No,
What is the average full tuition after scholarships and other financial aid? Oh yeah, do you have like kind of what the average package is, Lisa?
I mean, I think the one that I sent isn't too bad, but if you look at it's collegescorecard.gov, you'll be able to see the average cost out of pocket for different income levels. If you haven't used collegescorecard.gov, it's really useful.
Does it matter when we apply for financial aid?
I think the sooner the better, just so
Yeah.
you have the information. I mean, there are some small funds that I will run out of, but it's not going to happen now. Like SEOG, for example, is a federal fund that we get with limited amounts, but it's for very, very high need situations. So for the most part, you're going to be considered fully for your aid, regardless of when you apply. But please apply sooner so we can have any conversations we need to before before you attend.
Yeah. So someone asked again about stacking scholarships if they have an outside one. Will it count against? Can you just reiterate?
Yep. So I always do it in the best interest of the student. So if I don't need to decrease anything, I don't. If I do, I look at the work study or loans first, the self-help. And then if it is so significant, like where the ones that you see that are very significant that could touch the HWS grant would be if you have a tuition benefit from another institution.
What about Posse scholars? And someone said, do they qualify for any additional aid or how does Posse work?
Posse gets the full funding for tuition and then is funded to meet full need. So it's going to be dependent on each individual posse situation, but they're considered for need-based aid, yes.
Yep. So when is the FAFSA due for early action applicants? Already, friends. So like,
Yep,
please get on it and send it to us as soon as
yep,
possible. So then we're not having to wait around so we can get you that information as soon as
yep.
possible. We filed the FAFSA. Is there a New York State filing we need to do if we live in New York? No, right?
No, well, it depends. If
Oh,
at the end of the FAFSA, there is usually an option to go to the New York State TAP website.
oh, okay.
If you have not done that, I would just Google New York State TAP and find it and make sure your application is done.
Oh, this is a good one we haven't touched on yet. The 3-3 law program or the 3-2 engineering.
Mhm, mhm.
How does the aid work? Does my aid carry?
Each one is very specific and a bit different depending on the year, so it's not something I can answer generally, but we do what we can to help our students.
Well, they apply for aid through those schools though, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
If
So
they if they
it's separate.
Well, in some cases though, I think the Dartmouth one has one where we actually do send aid.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's very specific to the program that you're in. But you can always apply at that school, yes.
Someone says, just to clarify, an international student's financial aid would only cover tuition. I don't think that's what you were saying, right?
Only cover tuition and fees, yes.
Oh, tuition and
At,
fees. Yeah.
at
Okay.
the at
Yeah.
the maximum. And there's no guarantee that the maximum will be what you provided, but that's the maximum. We don't provide anything for housing and food.
Yeah. And then we already answered this. No, like as much as we applaud if your GPA changes, we're not going to change your merit. Um, is there any aid for a sibling of a current HWS student? Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
No, no, I don't think we have any sibling discount kind
Yeah.
of process, but it is considered in the aid
Yeah.
process, but not anything specific, no sibling grant.
Well, this is a good question. If a student's receiving an early, I think they're saying an early athletic read, or no, if a student's receiving athletic aid, will that hurt his chances of receiving any other types of aid? I'm not sure who would be.
No, I think that I mean, that would only be for a lacrosse player
Okay.
here. And that would only, I mean, I believe there's still be considered for merit could get lacrosse. If there was still need, I would look at need-based aid.
Oh, this is a good question. There are some schools where there is no GPA. So how do we calculate merit? So if a school doesn't provide us a GPA, just so you all know, we calculate one for you if we have grades. If it's narrative or something separate like that, we have a process to assign a GPA or we use standardized test scores to come up with that. So just because if
Mhm.
you may have a more non-traditional transcript, it's
Mhm.
not going to disqualify you from aid from the merit. Does any form of financial aid cover studying abroad?
You usually can, I mean, we will do the cost of attendance budget, just like we did at the beginning for that
Yeah.
specific place. And there's
Yeah.
not usually additional funding unless you apply through our global ed,
Yep.
but you can take your aid to study abroad that you
Yep.
get.
You can take it. And they do, like Lisa said, Global Ed has some additional scholarship and funding should students need it.
Mhm.
How much does HEOP typically cover?
Usually it's a combination of HEOP and need-based grant, and that's going to depend on the grant level that we receive. But our HEOP students, their need is usually met. Not just with grant, there will be a subsidized loan in there as well. And first year, no work study, but second and third, fourth year work study.
Um, I don't know if you can do this on the spot, but someone was asking for a more realistic package for like a middle class family. They say, I understand every family is different, but it's hard to envision what my student will actually have to pay. Yeah. So
The
what would you
best,
say for
the,
our middle class families?
I think that the best way to get a good estimate for your family would be to use our net price calculator.
Hmm.
So, and some of that will be impacted by what merit scholarship you get. So if a middle class family has an SAI of, say, $40,000 and you have a $40,000 um, merit scholarship, there's less room for me to work with any need-based funds,
Yeah.
right? So, and everybody has a different definition of middle class. So I think your best bet, and I can certainly help you with it if you want to give us a call. We have a net price calculator on our website where you can actually enter in your SAI if you've done your FAFSA, and it'll walk you through the process. And the estimates that it provides are pretty good. So if you've done your FAFSA, you can kind of do that now.
Okay. For an international student with no CSS profile, if aid doesn't cover full tuition, can she ask for more scholarship to cover the tuition? What would you advise?
You can certainly appeal.
Yeah. You can
It's
send an appeal.
um I can't give you any guarantee that it would
Yeah.
be on, you know,
Yeah.
a result in additional funding.
What is the typical amount a student who qualifies for max aid through FAFSA would end up paying after receiving aid from HWS?
There is no typical amount. Every
Yeah.
family is so different. I can't really get, again,
Yeah.
look at that
Yeah.
collegescorecard.gov
Hmm.
and it gives you what people usually pay based by some income groupings that is useful.
Oh yeah, so kind of in that same question we answered before, does aid continue if a student studies abroad through HWS? So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And like room and board covers their housing abroad, correct? That's how it works.
I mean, whatever aid they have would be sent to study abroad. I think
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
all depends on what program, that kind of thing. So I think, can I bring this, if I bring this over, can you all see this here,
Yep.
the
Yep.
collegescorecard.gov? And you can do this with any school. And if you look, this is public information. It talks about a lot of things. And down here under costs, it doesn't give you aid as much, but it'll break down by what the average annual cost is by income.
Yeah, there you go.
But it also gives you some really great information like the median earnings. Our median earnings are a bit higher when our
Hmm.
students graduate. Um, all this kind of stuff. So
Good.
you can actually compare and contrast various schools on this site. It's very helpful.
Okay. This is again about kind of the specialty scholarships, but I'll say it to
Hmm.
everyone in case anyone else has this question. So it asks for teacher recommendations in our specialty scholarships, like in the fine and performing arts.
Hmm.
Um, so you can double dip. If your student has submitted one of those as part of their Common App application for us,
Hmm.
um, you don't need to ask them to resend it. We'll see that as part of the review process, and we'll let them use it both for the specialty scholarship, and we'll use it as part of our application review. So don't worry about that. Um, our high school doesn't weight honors or APs. We take care of that. We recalc and make sure everything is on an even weighted field for everyone. So we do take that into consideration, yes, when we're doing the merit component. How do you check to make sure we received your FAFSA? You go to your portal, right? So once again, go into that application portal. You have a checklist.
Yep.
So the top part are your academic components for us, but the bottom part, if you had said yes to need-based aid, it will say FAFSA and it will either be checked off or it'll have like that red X, I think. So oh, can you
Mhm.
talk about, Lisa? There's like a little bit of a lag, right, from when they may have submitted FAFSA to when we
Yep.
actually receive it and check it off.
It's not instantaneous. It's a file transfer process. So what happens is we bring in the information from the federal government when we get the FAFSA, and then once I have that in our system, I share that with admissions so they know that we have it.
Great. Yeah,
Just a
I
yes
think
or
I think
no.
people always assume that it's going to happen right away, so we say give it a couple of days
Yep.
and let it.
It's
Um,
kind of like when you do an electronic payment in your bank. It takes like 3 to 4 days. Same kind of thing.
what is the max award for the specialty scholarship for arts is 3,000, right, Lisa?
Hmm.
Yep. So it's 3,000 you get that
Yep.
we would stack on top of
Yep.
testing all of us tonight. Um, yep, so we think we answered the portal. Can you show again how you enter your personal information on college scorecard? Was that something you did, Lisa? I didn't.
Oh, I didn't do personal information, but yeah, I can bring it back up again. It's not a
Yeah,
problem.
if you want to bring it up so people can grab it. So you
Yep.
just searched for HWS, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then if you want to input your personal information to get the estimate, that's on our financial aid
Exactly.
website is
Yep.
the net
So
the
right. So this is the college scorecard, and you can look up you can actually pick a couple different schools and compare them. But if you look at Hobart, William, and Smith here, and you scroll down, it talks like average annual cost. Somebody was asking that. This is but with the federal reports that we actually submit. So I think you can go here and check it out. We have pretty good numbers. So costs, these are just averages, but net price calculator is at, let me see if I can search it.
yeah, if you want to just bring it up and show them where they can find it.
Yep.
So that's like our main financial aid page.
Yep.
So it has a great FAQ section as well with a lot of common
Yep.
questions if something didn't get answered. And then, yep, right there.
So you can start here. And if you put your state, so we could pick New York, you should probably always put on campus here. If you
Yeah.
know your TAP, you could put it here. I'm just going to say randomly 1,000. Um, and then you don't want to, like, if you have already gotten a merit scholarship from us, I wouldn't put it here. If you have any private scholarships, you can put it, and you can just walk through this whole process.
Yeah.
High school, it'll ask you about GPA, all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it will be, it doesn't take a long time, and it could give you a sense, and every school is supposed to have one of these. Now,
Yeah.
the accuracy could vary,
Mm.
but ours is pretty good. I test it before it goes out.
Yeah. Good.
So
Whew.
this is a very well-informed crowd asking great questions.
Yeah, I think we got through, I think all the open. Oh, can you enter the SAI on the net price calculator?
Yeah, you're supposed to have a spot to do that. If you log in, you should be able to do that. When I tested it, we did.
Okay. Good.
Yep.
But yes, we know that this is complicated, it's confusing, there are a lot of variables. So that's why we want to offer this session. We so appreciate your questions and you being here.
Mhm.
And then, as Lisa said, her office is great about communicating with families and transparency, and you can email them, you can find virtual appointments, you can come on campus and do an appointment. So there are a lot of ways to connect with the office if you have other questions or things that we can help with.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. There's just a couple more questions about the
Sure.
portal. So the application portal, the student sets it up, right? It goes to the student. The student's the one that has access to it. For the application portal where you see our stuff, no, parents don't do anything with that, and you don't have to create your own account. And like I said, once you apply, you get the information for the credentials for how to log into that. If for some reason you can't find it, shoot us an email. If you know your person, your admissions rep, or you could just do admissions at hws.edu, and we'd be happy to resend that and make sure that you have that information. Um, great.
And if any of you want to email me, it's my last name, Hoskey, Hoskey, at hws.edu,
Yep.
or
So,
you can email finade@hws.edu.
yeah, great. I think we covered, I mean, everyone did a good job using the chat. I don't think anyone wanted to jump off. You're welcome to ask something, but if not, and like we said, this is recorded. It will go up on our YouTube channel like all of our virtuals. So if you need to replay it or you want to go back or you want to share it with someone else, just give us a little bit and then we'll put it up there and it will be available for everyone. Great. And thank you so much, Lisa, for being here and answering
Sure.
all these questions. And yeah, we hope you all found it helpful and you have a wonderful evening.